has Austrian of Malaysian origin. He got a degree in architecture, in urban design, Master of Science, with summa cum laude of Harriet Ward University of Edinburgh. And in urban ecology for his PhD, also summa cum laude from the Technical University of Graz, Austria. He is a leading expert on SMART, smart cities. He has written a lot of books, but now he's not now, sorry. He has co-written Strategy 2030. I don't know whether I can live up to that age. Sustainable consumption and production. 11th Malaysia plan for the Prime Minister's office. Is it the new Prime Minister or the last one? The last one, okay. Probably the new Prime Minister will change that. Because he is very difficult to stay until 2030, right? Professor Ramesh was named one of the 100 Asia Europe young leaders in 1998. He's not so young now, but I think in spirit, very young, still young. He has held visiting professorship in École Nationale de Ponts. Wow, this is very difficult for me to pronounce. Oh, Ponts in Paris. Soci, Paris, Nihon University, Tokyo, and the University of Houston, USA, the United Nations University at Tokyo, the University of Technology, Malaysia, Petronas Technical University, Harvard, and Imperial College London. His renowned book is, of course, on Metropolis, New Urban Cultures in Global Cities. And he has a contribution in the seminal book on the Encyclopedia of Vernacular Architecture of the World, edited by Paul Oliver, the late Paul Oliver. He currently head of the Smart Danube Region Master Project in 19 European countries and of ARK22, Austrian Urban Environmental Group. He runs his own architecture and urban design practice in Austria. As professor, he leads the program for resident city at the Technical University of Graz, Austria. You should come to Jakarta actually. Was a Jakarta joint event. Business development head of the Austrian Institute of Technology and board member of Hilfswerk Austria International, an NGO charity for development project and refugees. So please welcome Professor Ramesh Biswas.
Thank you very much. Good morning. The title of my presentation is Why Vernacular. It's a hard act to follow, but as to quote from Monty Python, now for something completely different. Permit me to raise certain questions rather than show you slides. I refer to the conference agenda, the three main themes of the conference, and hopefully start a dynamic discussion. The first complex of questions raised for the conference is the political context of vernacular subjects such as architecture. In this context, it is essential for those, all of us who are involved in theory, in analysis, in teaching, or in practice of architecture, whether vernacular or contemporary, to examine the influence and indeed pressures on our work currently from nascent and rising nationalism worldwide. Nationalist or neo-nationalist movements based on a relatively recent definition of the nation state, of the modern nation state, which is practically late 18th century and 19th century concept, which is now codified. For example, voting members of the United Nations are only nation states. There are some observers sitting in the gallery, but we cannot vote. Like many institutions, we tend to think of them as being around always, but you may be surprised to hear that marriage, for example, is a relatively recent institution. I mean, the bourgeois marriage between a man and a woman, a lifelong bind and raising children together, is yes, it's a fairly recent institution, maybe 200 years old. Except for the aristocracy or the royal households. Similarly, restaurants are very new, again about 180 to 200-year-old beginnings of the restaurants, which were the inns. But suddenly it becomes a sort of eternal truth, and it cannot be shattered. And so it is with nationalism, but nationalism is being sharpened with a sort of a very reactionary interpretation of borders. Although the European Union is probably one of the few movements which sort of deconstruct borders, but then you see again the UK leaving that because of that reason. Between us and them, and to co-opt a superficial and oft very kitsch understanding of the vernacular. Abidin yesterday talked about, among other things, in his very thought-provoking talk, about home, the concept of home. And and it is one of the stated topics of discussion of this conference. Home is a construct, an abstract starting point, the beginning, a reference point. But it often has very little to do with reality, as some of you might have discovered when you visit your place of birth after many years. Vernacular architecture, or at least a distorted and manipulated image of it, has been the plaything of despots, illiberal strongmen and populists for a very long time. I won't say contemporary names because Anthony has already mentioned them today, and it's very difficult for me to say those names without gagging. But then you go back a little bit, and Mussolini and of course Hitler were cases in point. In the 20th century, the Heimat, or the home, or homeland philosophy of the Nazis, of Nazi Germany, propagated a traditional, supposedly typical German style of painting, of sculpting, of building, with gabled roof, half-timbered, single-family houses, containing a single family, which would work towards the glory of the German nation. Rejecting what they call entartete Kunst, which is difficult to translate. It's a derogatory description of modernism in art and architecture as being perverse. Would you agree with that? The word perverse? Yeah, perverse art. So perverse art, so everybody who produced perverse art, which included a lot of artists and architects, were either cowed into submission, forced into exile, or simply murdered. Architects were driven into resignation, into opportunism, or into exile. And this movement was instrumental in closing down definitely instrumental in closing down the entire Bauhaus movement. So it is not necessarily the English interpretation of Heimat, but the actual original space which was created, the ideology that was created in Germany, and which was a rejection of modernism, a rejection, and also not really recognizing vernacular, genuine or traditional vernacular architecture. And that continues. I mean, if you have gone to the houses of leading bureaucrats and politicians in Asia, you would see that they have terrible taste. You know, how they decorate their houses is some sort of like American kitsch, hotel, fake English club kitsch. The crafts, the supposedly traditional crafts they display are third-rate, bizarre copies, often manufactured, industrially manufactured objects or souvenirs. If you go to embassies, Asian embassies all over the world, you would find, you would be horrified at the taste of these people who are supposed to be representing the culture of their country. And I'm not expecting them to recreate a Balinese house there, but it's maybe more honest just to have nothing than to have this sort of fake representation of their culture. And in extreme cases in Mongolia, which you have, your institute has researched, and in Mongolia, people live in yurts, which are huge tents, and they were nomadic people, and the yurt was, well, you know, doubly and triply clad, so insulated against the cold and the heat, and everything happened in there, eating, sleeping. When in Ulaanbaatar, a city came up and which had a governmental, had governmental institutions and people working in there, not so many companies yet, but so the government built, in the first instance, concrete boxes for them, big ones, which were ignored, and the high officials set up a yurt next to it in the garden and lived in the yurt. The next stage was that the government built massive concrete yurts for these people to live in. You know? However, they're also not used, and people have a genuine yurt still next to it in the garden where they live, because this concrete yurt is out of scale, it's hot, it's ugly. And so this is sort of multiple misinterpretation of the processes that Anthony listed. Nationalism, like terrorism, is not just a global political problem, but it's also an internal psychological conflict mechanism of every individual. Neither am I showing slides nor diagrams. Diagrams tend to reduce or be reductionist and oversimplify the very complex issues. So I'm asking you to sort of create a diagram in your mind, or to create, again, I could have shown you pictures of the yurts, but I think that this audience is perfectly capable of using the imagination or pictures that they have seen to think about the examples that I'm giving. Today's simplistic, nationalistic, and chauvinistic movements decry so-called foreign or immigrant influences on their respective cultures, while showing no evidence that the actual daily lifestyles of the substantial majority of the autochthonous population in the industrialized West and in the upper middle classes of emerging nations differ in any traceable cultural content from nation to nation. So a suburban life in the United States or in many other countries is very, very similar. Where is the cultural content? So you're moving, the altar is maybe the TV screen or this mobile altar, as I said. It's a life, everyday life. I talk about everyday life. I mean, like when I first came to Vienna, I thought everybody's going to the opera every day and sitting in cafes till well past midnight discussing Wittgenstein, and people on the streets are playing music. And when I was disillusioned by, of course, the fact that like everybody has life driven by consumerism and not by culture, and the cognitive dissonance between the self-image of a cultural nation like Austria and actual fact is the perhaps most charitable explanation of their views. Nationalists also refuse to identify the primary causes of cultural leveling off. So the fact that everything is becoming sort of normal and similar all over the world is namely not so much the cause of immigration, but it is the real world economy of capitalism both in its industrial form, and thank you Sandy for pointing out, also in its informational capitalist form, and its two offshoots, which are the consumer society that enables it to exist, and the serial production apparatus of materials, information, and models, which are produced, transmitted through imagery in commercials, in TV, movies, and YouTube. And the individual, and that's one, and the second would be the individual decomposition of social structures, and most recently of human work itself through robots. And I'm talking as someone who actually works with robots. Among others in the materials and construction industry, the effects of a global mass entertainment and media industry geared towards a general dumbing down. So it is I often refer to the United States. I don't know if those of you who have lived there will agree with me that it is the last existing real, what they call, I'm trying to translate the German phrase, real existierendes Sozialismus. So it's real existing communism. Because the mass manipulation and dumbing down of people to say that don't think about this, just follow, is just frighteningly evident over there. And of course, the commodification of people and places as a strategy of global tourism. To quote from this conference's program, all that rather than migration. Thus, my first question is, when you look at, I once recently asked a presidential candidate in Tanzania what he thinks about China's taking over, basically, of a lot of things in Tanzania by investing in whatever way you define it, bringing in money, basically, into the country. As many analysts have said, including Chinese analysts, even from Beijing University, considered it as exploitation, a new colonial exploitation of Africa. And this gentleman said to me, do you know something that's worse than being exploited? It's being ignored. Thus my first question is work in the field of vernacular architecture playing into the hands of nationalists and even neo-fascists? Are we gathered here, or those of us who are gathered here, considered by them to be useful idiots? To justify a wider and more malevolent agenda, this malevolent agenda is no conspiracy theory, it is being openly talked about with people like the orange guy, the White House, and person in the group of islands nearby here. how do we protect our work against them while presenting a more positive trajectory? Is there any hope that educating an influential minority which examines and practices, which examines meaning studies and practices, can harness an ever-growing new swarm intelligence for social cohesion that vernacular settlements patently had, without the backward-looking social or political structures? Of course, this question is not being posed by me for the first time or by anybody. Richard Florida, for example, has been talking about this. The second complex of my questions addresses the conference theme of meaning in vernacular. Meaning, like grandmother's recipe, you know, like grandma, everyone is proud of their grandma's recipe for whatever, rendang or whatever, which is supposedly is the recipe and has never been bettered. It's of course another illusion, because every grandmother has their own recipe, right? And they keep changing it too. And every grandmother passes around to their daughter, and that is the next grandmother who changes it, and the next grandmother changes it, and so on. So you're, of course, reinventing and adapting the so-called classic recipe every generation. As Octavio Paz says, the characteristic feature of modernity is criticism. What is new is set over what is, or set over or set against what is old. And it is this constant contrast that constitutes the continuity of tradition, not frozen in time artifact. Ever since this Siam Congress in the 1950s, I'm not talking about the original one in the 1928, but Aldo van Eyck authored, he was the main author of the declaration in the 50s, of course with inputs from Courvoisier and so on, seeking to restore the primacy of ratio, in Latin ratio, badly translated this may be rationality, in architecture, and thus to replace local architectural and settlement patterns. Replace them. Replace those patterns which were sourced from organically emerging specific cultural, geographical, and climatic conditions, as Claude Lévi-Strauss, the anthropologist, examined, trying to explain the specificity of a culture or a place with the geography. Or Ria Tannehill, who did it in the area of food, scientist from Scotland. This emerging tradition, something that emerged from this complex of conditions, plus a certain crowd intelligence, which Louis Mumford so brilliantly illustrated in his examination of traditional Italian hill towns, where he contradicted the general view that they are chaotic, that they have no coherent vision or planning in it. And he said, no, there is a lot of planning in it, it's just at another level, and it's the planning which results from hundreds and thousands of decisions by people who live there and who plan and build what they are living in. So on that, in the Siam Declaration in the 1950s, which was a document that influenced so many architects all over the world in their practice, and also politicians, of course, gladly grabbed onto this as a new paradigm, and also American capitalism perversely took sort of socialist ideas like modernism and use them to maximize profits. To replace all what I talked about, the crowd intelligence, to replace it with a clean, modern, uncluttered, and unburdened modern language and techniques of building, And since then, vernacular architecture has been under attack in actual architectural practice. But is there an essential quality of architecture that goes beyond styling? Because that's another reason why I didn't show styling photographs, because then one tends to be distracted into the style aspect of vernacular architecture. Is there I quote, a language without speech, an involuntary poetry, I quote Michel Foucault? Is there an atavistic need for inspiration, spirit, balance, harmony, elegance, beauty, and above all, emotion? Emotion, words that, I mean, these are words that you may have found in Vitruvius or in Japanese temple builders' manuals, but no longer mentioned in Siam documents of the time, and considered, even today, maybe considered unscientific or childish at universities. But look at this, a huge number of people who travel to see cathedrals, to see even those which are out of use. And before you say this is nostalgia, we're talking, you know, people are nostalgic for history. People are traveling to see the Guggenheim in Bilbao in their millions by Frank Gehry. Or to, maybe many of you are familiar with the artist Hundertwasser, who was no longer with us, but he was an artist who criticized modern architecture, and he wrote a manifesto on which the then mayor of Vienna said, okay, we're talking a lot, why don't you build something and show us? And he actually got a couple of projects to build in Vienna, which raised a hue and cry among architects from the conventional sort of architectural establishment, saying, who is this guy? He's not an architect. Why is he allowed to build? It's all kitsch, all these colors, the too many forms, and you know, this is horrible. We're going to put a wall around it, and so on. The tourist statistics in Vienna show that these buildings, Hundertwasser buildings, have exceeded visits to the cathedral. Obviously, these buildings address some need in people who are not architects, because they see a lot of things lacking in soulless, repetitive, modern construction. I can't even call it architecture. And I build only contemporary architecture. I don't do anything. So I'm big, you know, I'm for contemporary architecture, but I'm talking about the mass of building and the mass of housing in which people live in. Another case is the Schloss in Berlin, the Berlin Palace, which was destroyed during the war. After that it was in East Berlin, so it was torn down by the communists as, you know, because they were against former aristocracy. And they built something called the Palace of the Republic, which was a bronze glass facade, massive box, very generic, but still remains in fond memory of East Berlin people, because it was not a bureaucratic office, but it was a place of concerts, of exhibitions, art, and so on. And this is one place that they could go to escape the grim reality of their day-to-day existence. Now, after reunification of Berlin, the big question, debate took place. I mean, it went on for a long time, for many years. I was also invited to speak about it several times, and to be part of the discussion in certain committees. What should be done? So the Palace of the Republic had to be also demolished, because it had asbestos. So there were several years they actually cleaned out the asbestos and then they demolished the building. And they decided to reconstruct the palace, which is a totally absurd. Germany being a rich country, you couldn't even level the kind of criticism that is being leveled against Modi's India with wasting money on giant statues. So they can afford it, but the question was, is this the right thing to do? So they reconstructed, and with German thoroughness, they did a beautiful job of it. I've seen the building construction site in its final stages before the opening, and it's incredibly beautifully in terms of crafts and handwork and gilding and sculpture and everything. It was built today. It's not concrete or styrofoam copies like you find in China, but authentic stone building. Again, massive opposition to this, not just from architects, but from people who say this is the wrong signal. This is, we must be modern, we must move on, we must turn on. So I'm not trying to evaluate, I'm not saying I'm for or against this, but I'm trying to suggest a deep dissatisfaction with the banal products of modernism that surround us. It is nothing less than a slap in the face to architects of our time. And those pilgrims to the magical, like the museum in Bilbao, suggest a need for emotion. Can Vernacular give this to us? In what form? Is it in the form of luxury Balinese hotels? Is it in the form of fake Chinese tourist villages, where recently I understand from Sanjeev that people are actually living there? Someone else told me that yesterday. It's no longer just a tourist destination, but actually there are condominiums, there are apartments, there are houses in these fake villages where they copy Austrian or Swiss villages or French towns. And is that it? Is it the kitsch Dubai shopping malls? Is it Las Vegas, as Mike Davis exposed, as hollow because everything behind it doesn't really work in terms of water, energy, and so on? Is it that orange guy's vulgar monstrosities that he builds, and I think that's one of his worst crimes, his terrible taste. It's a long list of crimes, but this is top of my list. And all the ludicrous Macedonian neoclassical monuments. Macedonia is a country where Alexander the Great supposedly came from, and it is a tiny country in southeastern Europe, and they decided to, the current rulers decided to glorify the past, and they built massive copies of what they call Macedonian architecture, which is Greek architecture, but they all crowded together. There's no scale, there's no distance between the buildings. It's just like a bad Disneyland. Is that it? Is that the future of Vernacular? Departing from Deleuzian references, is there an understanding of the identity of the different as a primary potency? Not as a similitude, but as disparity, as Hasanuddin yesterday also suggested it would be a resistance. Disparity to reverse Platonism, to affirm the simulacra and to assign them their place between icons and copies, as places of subversion of mass consumerism that deny or transcend the so-called original and copy debate or the model and reproduction debate. Faulkner speaks to us on the questions of the challenges of modernity. And Christian Norbert Schulz, of course, explored and advocated the identification of a genius loci, a specific spirit of place. I quote, native, original, and contextual to geography and places, as the framework of this conference cites. I ask you to discuss how valid this purist approach is in architecture, when in other creative fields, such as music or fashion, mix and match, collage, copying, repetition, transformation are a daily and exciting exercise worldwide. Is architecture in a different category from music and fashion due to its relative permanence and substantial effect on the lives of people and on the planet? Discuss. And the final complex of questions deals, according to the conference agenda, deals with how the vernacular is presented and represented. If it is purely nostalgia, it's not enough. We don't need that. We don't need more open-air museums and disassembling and reconstructing a traditional house in a city for the sake of people to come in and sort of stare at it. I urge you to see vernacular as a qualitative, not a chronological category. So moving beyond this essence, appearance, copy, model, I-other relations, towards a distinction that works in the realm of representation, neither the model of the other, nor the search for the origin. Let us explore, I suggest, as my contribution, let us explore a new meaningful context that would arouse interest and meaningful work with the future. And that would be in focusing not on style but on the environment. I will give you two short examples. Mud building in Austria. Yes, Austria was a traditional way of building in a certain part of eastern Austria. And of course, after the post-World War II, it was completely abandoned because the construction industry makes no money out of mud. So this has been revived in a very small way. Or the case in point I saw was how tribals in western Kerala, in the jungles, tribal people who are hunter-gatherers and who do have mud thatched cottages. So some do-gooders, Rotary Club, or what they call it, came in there with some money and said, "Oh, we're going to take these people out of this primitive way of living," and then they built some concrete boxes for them, which were then totally abandoned. The concrete boxes, apart from the fact that they were too small for the large families that the tribe or the group, what would you call the gross family? So it's in English, extended family. So the boxes were too small, but the main reason why they were abandoned because they are unbearably hot and also ugly, but anyway hot. You can't live in them. So the Rotary Club people were highly offended that the tribals didn't take their generosity. So let me shift to a completely different area to illustrate my point. Traditional Chinese medicine does have its share of crass misconceptions, as does Vastu Shilpa or Feng Shui. But if allopathic medicine and big pharma is the answer, what was the question? Of course, profits, moving away from self-help to industrialized production. But China has recently displayed very impressive achievements in treatment combining both modern technology and principles of TCM being traditional Chinese medicine. More importantly, in today's world, there's a shift in thinking among the most progressive healthcare people who say preventive, TCM is preventive rather than reactive or palliative, as allopathic medicine is. So in a similar way, can vernacular architecture potentially show a more constructive, harmonious, indeed preventive way to counteract environmental destruction and to help heal the planet's wounds? Instead of concentrating on styles, semiotics, and semantics, can we instead extract and analyze essential lessons from vernacular architecture using local materials, conservation of resources and energy, using rivers, seas, and also that big nuclear reactor up there, which provides free energy, to fulfill our needs as earlier generations also fulfilled their needs with these sources of energy and did without destroying them. Can we look at waste reduction and vernacular as a zero waste or low waste way of life? Can we look at their life cycle approach of not just building something and forgetting about it, without looking at the amount of resources that went into producing the materials and what happens after the building is, as in many contemporary buildings, a short life of about 30 years to 50 years is ends. Or would this approach of mine or the suggestion be too deterministic and extracting something out of its context? I'd be happy to hear a question on that. Tempered by the interdisciplinary and judicious use of cutting-edge technologies, which are appropriate and sort of tailored to not just to sort of mass. It was my criticism of smart cities as it was originally conceived by IBM and Siemens and the big concerns as a business model. And I am very happy that many people like me managed to change that approach. So tempered by these technologies, from our more forward-looking research institutes and more holistic planners and thinkers, could there be a green future for vernacular? Can history stop the next war? I notice I ask can, not will. Machiavelli suggests that whoever wishes to foresee the future must consult the past, as events are produced by men who have been and ever shall be animated by the same passions. So to quote, to end with two quotes, Ludwig Wittgenstein, we feel that even if all possible scientific questions are answered, the problems of life have still not been touched at all. And finally, to quote from the German theater word, der Vorhang ist zu und alle Fragen offen. The curtain is shut and the curtain is closed and all questions are open. Thank you.
So this is an extraordinary presentation. You should not ask questions, but you should answer the question from the speakers. I hope you can sit with Professor Harari and both of you become the advisor for President Trump to prevent the future useless class, actually. And Professor Ramesh does tell us about the useful idiot. So don't become that. I suggest some of you may have already read Professor Harari's book on Homo Deus, also 21 lessons for the 21st century. So, and I'm quite interested to think, to listen to your language without speech. That's when we have a nostalgia for a song in 1968, which to me is a classic, Sound of Silence. And can the vernacular architecture prevent environmental destruction? And also, can history stop the next war? Is the main question. So, anyone who wants to answer that big question on the floor, or another question wants to answer? Okay, Pratyush wants to answer. Is it great?
Well, I'm not answering anything. I'm just thanks, Professor Biswas. It's a very thought-provoking and interesting presentation. I would like to maybe seek a clarification or something more about the first point you made about nationalism. And nationalism, in some sense, foregrounds a majority view. It tries to create singular identities. It creates like one idea or a single idea of culture or history, very selective reading of history. Whereas, what I gather, the way vernacular has often been presented or foregrounded it has been a way in which sometimes the ordinary is celebrated, or diversity is celebrated, the minorities are foregrounded. And as Professor Khusus was saying yesterday, it could be a site of a counter to the state, right? So how do you then connect the two of vernacular becoming instrument for nationalist ideology? I'm just a bit seek more clarifications there.
I'll give you the example of Nazi Germany, where certain models of and also certain architects decided to serve the National Socialists, the Nazis, with their services to fulfill this sort of ideological thing. And there was, of course, a huge dichotomy. There was, on the one hand, the Heimat house, which was a half-timbered, small little house for normal people. And then, of course, the megalomaniac huge plans, which were then, probably John Lang would, I heard an interesting phrase from him today on the way here, neo-vernacular. So, like Berlin, the massive Nazi neoclassical architecture was supposed to be sort of neo-vernacular for the German nation. But today, you look at European right-wing governments, which are like Hungary or Austria, which are propagating both maybe not, maybe they're not effective enough and they're not able to actually transform that into actual things happening, but they're definitely propagating Heimat style, which is like a homeland style, and rejecting stuff like even this sort of nationalism, which is at least for the last 20-30 years, there were architects who would move to other countries or build in other countries. This is now being sort of like questions of why should a French architect build in Austria and so on, sort of new kind of questioning, without looking at quality or the other issues of whether this is a better solution, rather than a nationalist solution. So I think that the idea that Edinburgh Parliament was built by a Portuguese architect was amazing, I mean, and that there are people who don't like the building, but there are very few people, I think, in Scotland who protested against the fact that it was a Portuguese architect. However, there have been now, in the Brexit debate, there have been a lot of reactionary modes. So I see that in many, many different countries. In South America, you have right-wing governments who insist on some kind of pseudo vernacular architecture rather than something that fits the needs of people, like housing. I mean, like how are you going to provide mass housing? You should neither have that sort of mass-produced housing construction industry solution, nor is vernacular indigenous architecture of Peruvians capable of providing that kind of mass housing. So what you need is some sort of creative, and there you need international and cosmopolitan. You need a sort of a crowd intelligence of the whole world to tackle these problems rather than look at nationalism. So I see a lot of this sort of movement towards nationalist architecture. On the other hand, they're not very effective, mainly because nationalists are largely stupid. Yeah? So they don't have the knowledge. I mean, they celebrate ignorance. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have they don't have that level to. Sorry. Yeah, or they don't even have that sort of common sense knowledge, So it's a manipulative ideology.
Okay, we still have some time as well. So I said, okay.
You are explaining smart cities. And about the smart cities, I want to know. In India now that India is changing and the smart cities are coming there. And the more they have the ambition that it should come like Singapore or New York and destroying the total vernacularity of all the cities. So how we can fight with them, how we can come against that, how we can stop this type of movement.
Yes, it's horrifying. John Lang's slide yesterday for the Ahmedabad project, but there are similar projects in other Indian cities, like in Hyderabad, which are, which not only are destructive in the sense that you mean it, but also they display a complete ignorance of how cities work and how people, the city is something magical. It's like, I mean, if you are, in your village or small town and you don't want to marry the boy that your grandmother has chosen for you, if you don't want to start working in your uncle's shop, you go to the city, because there you can struggle, you have to work hard, but you can at least try to realize your potential. Yes, people come to cities for money, but that's not the only thing. In the history of cities, people left everything. They left the security to come and to start something new. And now you find, so you have, I just have an anecdote from India where I was, invited somewhere for dinner, and then I stayed there. I was in a suburbs of Bombay or something. This one was 100 kilometers outside Bombay, so that's the size of. So I came in the next early morning. I took the early train because I had to get back for meetings to the center. And I came with the commuter train. As I came into the station, the train was just leaving. And there were people running to try to catch it. And as you know, the Indian train, you've seen, those who have not been there have seen TV, documentaries. The doors are open. So, and I saw along the entire length of this train, hands reaching out to pull in people. The train was already overcrowded. People didn't have space to breathe. Yeah, but they pulled them in. That for me was the metaphor of the city. All these people, new people coming in, are going to make my life more difficult in the short term, but then they will join in and they will make the city a greater, grander, better place. And the connection between the village and the city, and I don't believe that there is anything like that anymore, because all villages, in every family, there's somebody working in a city, sending money back, they watch TV, so the cultural, economic, is an entity. It's like the whole planet, with the exception of some tribes, maybe in Indonesia or in Brazil, who live in the jungle. With the exception of those people, we are living on an urban planet, which does not mean that there is no space for the vernacular, because the vernacular moves into the city, or the physical. You have to separate the physical form of settlement from the organizational form of settlement. So something like around Vienna, to give an example, there's a state, another state around Vienna, which is low-rise, 1- to 2-story buildings everywhere. And one may be mistaken to think that these are rural people. No, they are all like, they found that in about half of those villages, about 70% of people work in cities. They commute. In the other half, 95% of people work in cities. So it's like, so even those people who live there, they might consume even on the weekend. They work in cities, they have an urban life, and then even on the weekend, they would maybe go to the city to shop or to watch a movie or a theater, or they're consuming TV at home or other media, which are urban in nature. So they are actually living in a vernacular architecture, but living a modern life. And that is probably what I see as the future of the future development of the planet. So forget the idea of the New York Manhattan skyline, which some Indian politicians are obsessed with, or this Budong skyline, which they want to copy without knowing that it's not going to work in India. So forget that Paris Boulevard with the cafes. That was the old idea of the city, this today's city is, if you take India, it's one continuous settlement from Delhi to Bombay with no gaps.
Okay. It's quite a...
So the challenge is how to make that smart, how to make that kind of city smart in reducing energy, mobility, waste, how to husband water, how to husband resources. You know, this is the challenge of the smart city, and not, you know.
Does that answer your question, or you want to add something?
How we can do that? That is the problem.
Oh, well, because you are architects, that's why she asked that question.
No, I mean, to recognize it is the first step, which I think a lot of these politicians haven't got to that stage yet. Yeah? They think of some sort of like imagery that they need to project to say that, look, this is what we're going to do. I suspect that most of them know that it's not going to happen anyway. Yeah? But something, a bad version of that might happen. But if you recognize the new, urban nature of the planet, and then you look at the use of maybe materials which are not, which are renewable and not, one way. This is probably a lesson, as I said, to learn from Vernacular, that you could, and there are quite a few, not enough, but quite a few innovative architects all over the world working on these lines.
Okay, one more question.
You briefly mentioned a touch on waste.
Sorry?
Waste.
Yes.
Don't you think that's one of the most mind-boggling issue of the urbanity today? In Ahmedabad, there is a 80-meter high, 6 to 10 acre footprint hill of waste. And how do you put this into the context of our thoughts of vernacular, as well as the idea of city as a place to go to for opportunities?
Well, probably traditional societies, by and large, were low waste or zero waste, because every little bit of resource needed to be used. So whatever was, there was a waste product from agriculture, it was made into baskets or roofs or building, huts or clothing and so on. So I'm not saying we need to, all of us, start weaving clothes from waste plastic, but what I'm saying is the attitude and maybe the attitude to drive innovation, where it comes from that. I don't know if this bag that I have is like one of those plastic waste thing which people are making, and so okay, this is catching on in a big way. There are upcycling, there's recycling. There will still be a lot of municipal waste, and then that's maybe the big tech solution for that. There are many, but again, because what we need are holistic solutions, because waste is not a material problem, it's a problem, it's in your head. Yeah? So unless you attack that, unless you transform people's thinking, that mountain is not going to lessen. Yeah? And that mountain needs to lessen, and then you need to tackle that kind of thing. And I think that even in India, and I was quite amazed to see that Burundi and some states in India have banned plastic. I mean, Europe hasn't got around to doing that yet. So I think that the idea of the smart is not the IBM or Siemens model of smart, but it's something which I would consider not to exclude technology, because I'm very much in favor of using innovative technologies, and there are so many thinkers in research institutes. For one of our projects, Smart Danube Region, we have a pool of 600 people in Europe who are innovative thinkers, who are developing new processes for everything, all kinds of things. So we need to, but still there is not enough of that sort of pooling of resources, and there's not enough transfer of that kind of thing, because we are still stuck in a 1960s, 1970s infrastructure, big industry mode of thinking, which is probably not the only solution for to solve the planet's problems.
Well, I think we still have 5 minutes probably.
Yeah, please, I'd be happy.
Okay, this is a hot issue. So now you don't have to answer, but you can ask questions. Anybody? If no more answer questions, then please give applause to Professor.